You need to watch this if you struggle with understanding what real hunger feels like. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. Think about the last truly hungry day you've had. Not just feeling a bit peckish or ready for dinner, but that deep, gnawing emptiness where, honestly, food becomes your only thought. Now, picture living with that feeling for weeks, months, or even years, while also facing the constant strain of conflict. The history of wartime survival isn't just about generals and battlefields, it's about the relentless daily battle for sustenance, fought in home kitchens and muddy trenches alike. For survivalists and history enthusiasts, understanding how people adapted and endured through the scarcity of the world wars offers more than trivia. It provides a profound lesson in resilience, innovation, and really the universal will to survive. This guide delves into that struggle, exploring the ingenious, desperate, and often surprising ways soldiers and civilians fueled their fight for survival. The reality of feeding an army and a nation required a staggering logistical effort, with rations engineered for endurance rather than enjoyment. During World War II, the United States military developed a complex alphabet of rations to feed its troops under, well, just about any condition. The most famous were the individual field rations, the heavier C ration, with its canned meals providing about 121 grams of protein, and the lighter pocket-sized K ration, which was designed for short-term use by paratroopers and mobile units. The K-ration, conceived by physiologist Ansel Keys, was honestly a marvel of packaging. It contained 3 separate meal boxes for breakfast, dinner and supper, totaling around 2,830 calories. However, the reality of combat quickly exposed its limits. Commanders began issuing it for weeks on end to frontline troops, a purpose for which it was never designed. Highly active men, especially in extreme environments like the jungles of Burma or the mountains of Italy, burned far more calories than the ration provided. Soldiers reported dramatic weight loss, with some, like Merrill's marauders, losing an average of 35 pounds over months of subsisting mostly on K-rations. This calorie deficit, compounded by vitamin deficiencies, led to conditions like pellagra and really sapped the men's strength and resistance to disease. The ration's monotony and, well, some unappealing components, such as fatty pork loaf or that intensely sour lemon powder, meant soldiers often discarded parts, further reducing their nutritional intake. This stark gap between planning and the brutal reality of sustained combat is honestly a crucial lesson in the difference between theoretical survival and actual endurance. On the home front and in the trenches, survival cooking became an art form, transforming scant and humble ingredients into something capable of sustaining life and morale. With imports blockaded and supplies diverted to the front, civilians and soldiers alike turned to creativity. A 1916 British recipe for a cheese and lentil savoury, typical of the era, used lentils, a small amount of cheese, breadcrumbs and onion to create a nutritious spread, stretching precious protein with hearty pulses. Sweets did not disappear, but were, reinvented. A 1915 apricot charlotte used stale bread, butter and stewed dried apricots to create a pudding that really wasted nothing. Perhaps the ultimate symbol of this ingenuity is the war cake from 1918, a boiled fruit cake made without eggs, butter or milk, ingredients that were simply unavailable. In the German trenches of World War I, soldiers worked with what their supply chains could deliver, which was often potatoes in massive quantities. The German field cookbook, Kochbuch für den Schützengraben, offered recipes to break the monotony, instructing soldiers on how to make baked mashed potatoes with grated cheese or form leftover mash into croquettes to be fried. Sauces, like a simple tomato or mustard sauce thickened with breadcrumbs, were essential for making dry field bread or plain grains more palatable. These recipes were not about gourmet cooking. They were focused, practical instructions for making the most of every single calorie, a principle that resonates deeply with any serious survivalist. The spirit of making do with what you have connects the era of the world wars directly to the survival skills celebrated on this channel, particularly the ethos of the hobo cook. The men who rode the rails during the Great Depression, many of them veterans of the trenches, were masters of minimalist cooking. Their toolkit was their greatest teacher. A simple can, like a coffee tin or large tomato can, could be transformed into a highly efficient hobo stove. By punching vent holes with a simple awl or church key opener, they created a contained, hot-burning fire that was fuel-efficient, quick to boil water, and discreet, a critical advantage when you needed to avoid attention. This stove could bake a hobo biscuit in a grease skillet or steam foraged vegetables and fish over a bed of herbs. The philosophy was identical to that of a soldier in a dugout or a housewife under rationing. Identify available resources, apply simple technology, and waste nothing. The stories from Depression-era jungle camps, where men shared a single pot of coffee or stew, mirror the communal feeding of a unit sharing a 10-in-1 group ration. This lineage shows that the core skills of survival cooking are timeless, rooted not in high-tech gear, but in mindset and fundamental technique. You know, the legacy of wartime and Depression-era survival is really a testament to human adaptability, proving that nourishment under pressure hinges on ingenuity, not abundance. The journey from the K-Rations clinical packaging to the smoky steam rising from a hobo stove in a jungle camp tells a continuous story. It's the story of the German soldier adding a foraged apple to his potato ration, the British housewife devising a cake without eggs, and the young hobo of the 1930s turning a discarded can into a means to cook his one daily meal. These are not just historical footnotes, they're actually masterclasses in practical resilience. They teach us that survival is often a quiet, persistent act of transformation, turning scarcity into sufficiency, and, well, basic ingredients into the will to carry on. For the modern enthusiast, these lessons are honestly invaluable. They pull history out of the textbooks and place it right in your hands, or even in your campfire, challenging you to think, adapt and overcome with the tools you have. If you found this deep dive into the history of survival cooking valuable, go ahead and share it with a fellow history buff or bushcraft enthusiast. Subscribe to Waypoint Survival for more guides that bridge the gap between historical endurance and modern preparedness. Let us know in the comments what era of survival history you'd like us to explore next. And hey, don't forget to practice these skills. History isn't just to be read, it's to be lived and learned from.